Hello and welcome to Bounding into Comics. My name is John Trent. I'm the editor-in-chief and founder of Bounding into Comics. And today I've got a story about The Boys showrunner Eric Kripke. Eric Kripke recently claimed that Marvel Studios films and superhero films in general lead people to embrace, quote, people like Trump and populists, end quote. Kripke's comments came in a wide-ranging interview with The Hollywood Reporter, where he claimed that superhero myths in general have, quote, undeniable fascist underpinnings. But we're going to be focusing on his comments about Marvel Studios films leading people to embrace people like President Trump and populists. So as for those comments on Marvel Studios, they came after he was asked what he thought the shortcomings of Marvel and DC movies are and how he's trying to correct them with The Boys. The showrunner responded to the question saying, quote, people might be surprised to know this, but I'm actually a fan of the Marvel stuff. The filmmaking is often impeccable. I actually really enjoy the humorous tone that a lot of them are written in. They're snarky and fast and glib, and I like that style. My issue with them are not the movies themselves, but that there's too many of them overall. So I'd like to point out that the Marvel films he seems to be talking about are post James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy, where they become snarky and fast and glib, and it's really kind of accentuated, I would argue, in Thor Ragnarok, where that's really what you get a lot of that. And some people like that. That Thor Ragnarok is like one of my least favorite Marvel films, and I'm not the fan of the snarky, fast, and glib style. I did enjoy the first Guardians, the second one not as much. But yeah, so there's nothing wrong with his comments there. I don't see anything wrong with that. But he would then elaborate on his problem with the fact that there are too many superhero films. He explained, quote, I sort of believe it's dangerous not to overstate it or be overdramatic, but it's a little dangerous to train an entire generation to wait for someone strong to come in and save you. That's, I think, how you end up with people like Trump and populists who say, I'm the only one who can come in, it's going to be me. He then added, and I think in the way that pop culture conditions people subtly, I think it's conditioning them the wrong way because there's just too much of it. So I think it's nice to have a corrective, at least a small one in us, to say, they're not coming to save you, hold your family together, and save yourselves. So there's a lot to unpack here. I don't know what Marvel Studios films Eric Kripke has seen, but most of them don't see people waiting for someone else to come in and save them. In fact, the opposite is true. In Iron Man, Tony Stark doesn't sit around and wait for the United States military to find and save him. Instead, he builds his very first Iron Man suit to save himself and free himself from terrorists. In Captain America: The First Avenger, Steve Rogers isn't just sitting around and waiting to join the fight against the Nazis and Japanese in World War II. He's going to every sign-up place he can in order to try and join up, despite getting consistently denied. His persistence leads him to be chosen for Project Rebirth. Still, despite being recruited into the project by Dr. Abraham Erskine, Colonel Chester Phillips doesn't believe him to be the right choice to have the super soldier serum injected into him. It's not until Rogers jumps on a grenade to save the rest of his soldiers that Phillips is convinced. That's right. Rogers is the one saving people, doing it himself. He's not waiting for someone else to save him. And that's why he's chosen as Captain America. In a bit of a twist, Thor also doesn't sit around and wait for anyone to save him. He leads Loki, Sif, and the Warriors 3 in a raid on Jotunheim after frost giants had infiltrated Asgard. This act results in Odin stripping his abilities and banishing him to Midgard. However, despite losing his powers, he still doesn't sit around and wait for anyone to save him. He attempts to reclaim Mjolnir, but is still deemed unworthy. Then, when his newfound friends are under attack, Thor decides to protect them from the onslaught of the Destroyer without any of his Asgardian abilities that he gets from Mjolnir. Thor jumps in and chooses to defend his friends. He doesn't wait for anyone to save him. In fact, literally all of the Marvel Studios films show heroes jumping into action and not sitting around and waiting for people to save them. Star-Lord and the Guardians of the Galaxy set out to stop Ronan the Accuser. Doctor Strange seeks out the Ancient One in order to fix his hands and eventually embraces the role of Sorcerer Supreme to defeat Dormammu. Spider-Man chooses to fight against Vulture, even against the wishes of Iron Man. Black Panther faces down Killmonger, and Carol Danvers actually joins the Air Force and becomes a test pilot before she's exposed to the Tesseract and gains the abilities to become Captain Marvel. Ant-Man even risks going back to prison to try and make some money so he can see his daughter again. And that's how he eventually becomes Ant-Man. He's recruited by the original Ant-Man, Hank Pym. The Marvel film literally show the exact opposite of what Kripke claims. And as for his claims about the boys giving you a message about holding your family safe, I'm not sure he even remembers the first season. Huey's girlfriend is murdered in a split second by A-Train. Butcher believes his family was murdered by Homelander. The two actually team up to exact revenge against the Seven. Their families are gone, and the focus is on vengeance. It doesn't make you want to save yourself. I would argue the show actually embraces losing yourself in the self-destruction of revenge. So later in the interview, Kripke would also be asked if he was worried about any backlash from the show. This is what he said. Quote, I don't have control over that. As a writer, you can drive yourself crazy trying to worry about what the reactions will be. The truth is, we're firmly within the superhero genre. We have action scenes, we have superheroes fighting, people are launching lasers and shit at each other, the world is at stake, we have all of those things. We're just deconstructing it as we go and playing the thought of experiment of what would they really be like in this world. So I think the show works for people who love superhero stuff and people who hate superhero stuff. And I think that statement really tells you all you need to know about Kripke's view of our world. If he thinks The Boys depict superheroes as they would be in this world, he has a very grim view of humanity. And I would argue Kripke's grim view of the world is probably what we need less of in our pop culture. I think the scene where Homelander refuses to try and save the individuals on that plane really stands out. As to what he sees superheroes being. He doesn't see that there is a Superman who is the beacon of truth, justice, and the American way. He would do anything he could to try and save a plane full of individuals. I mean, that's one of his iconic things, is he saves plane. And they kind of try and reverse that with Homelander. So he's saying that there wouldn't be this Superman-type character in our world. Well, I would argue we have people like that all the time. Our police are doing that all the time. Firemen are doing that all the time. No one was sitting around and waiting to save people, to be saved in 9/11. People were trying to escape from those towers. You even saw a number of people rush in to try and save those people after those horrific terrorist attacks that we suffered about a decade ago. So, I mean, that alone just shows you that his worldview is wrong, because we do see people going around saving people all the time. And protecting people all the time. You just have to stop and actually see it. It is happening. It's there. And that's maybe why maybe Hollywood should actually return to this hopeful view of humanity, seeing people working together as a community, coming together, saving people, respecting each other. Maybe get this hopeful view of Superman that we once had, where he is the beacon of truth, justice, and the American way. And I would argue that view is why mangas and anime like My Hero Academia are becoming so popular. You have heroes like All Might, Deku, and even the bristly Bakugo, who are willing to stand up against the darkness and provide a beacon of light and hope. So you can have people who are a little more prickly, like Bakugo is, or even, I would even argue in Dragon Ball, Vegeta is prickly, but after his turn from villain into hero, he is there fighting with Goku against the worst people that the galaxy has to offer. And Bakugo does the same thing. So you can have people who have a little bit different personalities, but they still hold on to these ideals. And that's something that we don't really see anymore. We don't see these really hopeful heroes who are willing to sacrifice themselves. And I would say we do see that a little bit in the Marvel stuff, especially in the beginning with Iron Man. Like I pointed out, Iron Man, Captain America especially, you see them kind of doing that. They're willing to risk themselves. Spider-Man, to an extent, is willing to do that, especially in the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. You saw that a lot. But we're not really seeing that anymore. We're seeing more of these Watchmen on HBO. We're seeing The Boys. We're seeing the more darker version of these superheroes, where they aren't really examples that you would want to follow. They're much more people getting in to the darker part of our souls, or even like potentially like souls that are corrupted. And you're looking at these people who are on a path towards darkness rather than a path towards light, a path towards what you would really want to follow as an example. So those are my thoughts on Eric Kripke's comments. I think this guy completely doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to superheroes. Let me know what you think about Eric Kripke's comments and whether you think that you agree with him that these superheroes are somehow leading to people like Donald Trump and populism, and the fact that we need, like, they're teaching us to just sit around and wait for someone to save us rather than being proactive and helping our fellow man. And then I'd also be interested in what your opinion is on this idea that the boys depict superheroes as they would be in this world. And do you think that is true, given the people that you know around you in this world? So let me know what you think. My name is John Trent, and you've been watching Bounding into Comics.